If you're asking questions like, what video should I produce next? Where did those files go from the last reel I edited? Or have I really sent that invoice to the client last week? Chances are you're playing catch up. If you're like most content creators, you won't fail because of one big mistake. You fail because of 100 small things you ignore while you're busy with nothing but content. Videos produced with zero data behind them, lost files, chaotic financial management behind the scenes, and no planning ahead, that sort of thing. I started out just like that and constantly felt behind, not because I was lazy, but because I never added proper admin work to my content business. I thought I just hustle harder and longer every day until I figured out that a 1 to maybe 2 hour block of admin per week is all it takes to not just get on top of things finally, but to even get ahead. That shift didn't just save me time, it changed the way I operate my business today because I stopped being the bottleneck and became the one who controls the system. So, if you're constantly feeling behind creating content, this is the right video for you. I'll share my 3 step system that'll help you make better decisions about content, keep an eye on your business, admin, and plan ahead like a CEO. After this video, you won't just have another one of those productivity checklists. You'll have a system to run content creation as a business without being the one who is run by the business. If you're asking questions like, what video should I produce next? Where did those files go from the last reel I edited? Or have I really sent that invoice to the client last week? Chances are you're playing catch up. It's only logical to feel behind all the time, right? But that's a symptom and not the root cause. And with a 1 to 2 hour admin block every single week, we're looking to solve the root cause and not just patch up the symptoms. You can shoot from the hip and decide each week what content to create. There's nothing wrong with that if you're doing this for fun. But the moment you want to think of YouTube as part of your business, there needs to be some planning and longer term thinking. Same goes for your file and folder management. Businesses rarely implode because of one big thing that goes wrong. It's death by 1,000 paper cuts. So, fixing little things like using proper file naming conventions pay dividends going forward. Even if in the moment it looks tedious to have a guy like me tell you that you should name your files properly. I can tell you from personal experience that those little things do matter in the long run because conflict delayed is conflict multiplied. Same goes for the financial management of the business. Sure, you can trust whatever tool you have to send invoices to clients automatically, but eventually you might have to just sit down and double check 500 transactions at the end of the year and bang your head against the wall, wondering why the number on your bank statement doesn't add up with your accounting software and why there's like 67 cents difference. Or you could just manage that stuff regularly upfront. Let's say as part of an admin session with 3 blocks that are non negotiable. The moment you install a system around these things, you stop being the victim of your business. Reactive becomes proactive. And that's the actual upgrade we're building here. Before we dive into these 3 blocks one by one, let's quickly define what this session is about and more importantly, what it's not about. It's not a creative session for script writing, filming, or editing. No updating thumbnails either, because those are content production tasks. This is all about the behind the scenes operations or the maintenance, if you want to call it that. So, no, I'll use this time to quickly finish that upload package or I'll fix this thumbnail that's been performing below standard. This admin session is all about keeping your system running, mainly by looking at the status and making adjustments to the machine if needed. And most importantly, it's a session that happens consistently, week after week, every month, not whenever I have the time for it. It's a fixed slot once a week because you want to make a habit out of this quickly. In total, we have 3 blocks to check. We'll do a content check, a money check, and we have a dedicated reset block where we essentially plan ahead for the next week. As part of the content check, we want to look into 3 aspects: the content pipeline, the analytics from YouTube specifically, or other platforms you use, And we want to check if we have to do a file cleanup and do that right away if needed. But let's start with the review of the content pipeline first. The purpose of building a content pipeline in the first place was to take you from idea to upload week after week without the chaos and the stress. And to do so by splitting up content creation into 3 steps: ideate, produce, and distribute. So you want to review if the content you create is moving through that pipeline properly, or if there are bottlenecks or any other issues you need to address on a systems level. For instance, I check my idea database and see how many of those are in the research stage or ready for production. Then I check what's currently in the production step, when it has to be finished, and if there are any issues associated with it. Like a video has been shot 4 weeks ago and it's still not edited. I want to understand what's going on there. For the distribution step, I want to make sure I double check that content for next week is ready to go, as in uploaded and scheduled if we're talking YouTube specifically. If that's not the case, I have a priority right there, especially if I do my admin session on a Friday afternoon. I want to make sure content is ready on Monday, or I need to spend the weekend on it. And this includes rechecking my content plan and seeing if it's really up to date. Yes, there's an SOP for this, of course, and it rarely happens that I forget, but double checking can't hurt, and it literally takes 30 seconds. Open content plan, see if all the columns are filled out, save and close. I also ask myself if I have enough content for the next few weeks. Personally, I like to have a buffer of at least 3 to 4 weeks, simply to avoid any stress should I get knocked out by the flu. At this point in the review, I'm no longer guessing what to work on next. That's a fundamentally different approach compared to doing whatever I feel like, and it compounds over time. If there's an issue in my review, like content not being scheduled for next week or missing entries in the content plan, I won't fix that right away. I make a note for the reset block we'll discuss in a minute. First, I want to continue with a quick analytics review. I do 2 things here. Once a week, I go to YouTube Studio and look at the numbers: CTR, average view duration, which video brought in the most views and subscribers, that sort of stuff. And once a month, I ask vidIQ to perform a full channel audit. I check if CTR of my last video is above 4%. If yes, I argue that the package is working. If no, I flag it for improvement. I also check if average view duration is above 40%. If that's a yes, I know the content is holding attention. If no, I flag it for improvement. Same goes for search traffic. Is it above 20% of total views after 7 days? If yes, SEO is connecting. If no, I flag it for improvement. Then I check views and total watch hours in the last 4 weeks to get a trend. I don't care so much about the absolute numbers in every single week. The trend is more important, and ideally it's going up. Now, if it's the end of a month, I also ask vidIQ to do a full channel audit, as I said before, mainly to see how it interprets the numbers and what suggestions it has to move forward. And while it's not super accurate all the time, it's one more data point to see the bigger picture. And this is where the shift from instinct driven to data driven creator happens. Basically, you stop making content because it feels right. You start making content because the numbers tell you it's the right thing to do. Before I move to the second admin block where I check my financials, I like to also do a brief file cleanup as well. It doesn't happen often, but every once in a while, I don't organize all the files in a video project. So I double check my last edits and put the B-roll in the B-roll folder if it needs to go there. You can ask why this would matter given that the video is scheduled or already published. Well, I think this is an investment for my future self. If in 2 months from now I have to go back and check something in this video folder, I do not want to spend half an hour sorting through all the chaos. I want to open a clean file structure and find what I'm looking for within 30 seconds. Same goes for any files I have sitting on my desktop or in my downloads folder. Are they named properly, following the naming convention? Do I need to keep them and move them into my drive somewhere else? Or can they just go to the trash? And I totally get that this looks like a lot of work, at least the way I talk about it. But Think about this. How many files can you really accumulate in a single week? So it shouldn't take too long to check them and deal with them right away if they float around your desktop. I consider this a 2 to 5 minute task at best. So this is not hours of file organization. I'm at a point in my business where the folder structure and the naming convention is up to date and basically my default system. So I'm adding more order to an already organized system. It's not really extra work or effort because I'm not rebuilding a structure from scratch every single time. Now, if you're at the point where creating order is a higher priority, then definitely check out the 3 step file organization system. It's the foundation that'll help you focus on content creation while running everything properly behind the scenes. And while the business part is almost running effortlessly by itself. A bonus tip is to also check automatic backups every once in a while if you follow the 3-to-1 backup process. See if they're actually performing well. I have this set up through my NAS on a weekly schedule, and I get email confirmations that the backup ran automatically. But if you sync data to a Google Drive or anywhere else, it might make sense to check if the backup was done properly, like once a month or so. This never feels like an urgent task, of course, but it's part of running a stable system regardless, and we're talking about 2 minutes of time investment once a week that will potentially save you days or weeks of rebuilding files and folders from scratch if you lose it all and your last backup was a year ago. That being said, if you're like most creators, you don't need more motivation. You need a better operational system, not just for YouTube, but for the behind the scenes business aspects, especially if you're a one man or a one woman show. That's exactly why I put together a free 1 page solopreneur operating system template. It gives you a simple structure for running your business and content alongside each other with more clarity and less chaos. Link is in the description below. Okay, so the purpose of the second admin block or money check is to get a brief update on the financial health of the business. I know many creators like to focus on revenue here. How much money did their business or the channel make this week, this month, this year? And while that's important, there are other aspects that matter a lot more than revenue alone. For instance, I like to log all my purchases at least once a month in my accounting software and download any subscription bills I get on a regular basis. I could totally automate this step, but at the point I am, I want to keep an eye on things. And having the manual step here of downloading a bill, adding it to a folder, helps me keeping an eye on it. And again, we're talking like 5 bills per month max. And this is not a high volume task I spend 5 hours on. So 5 minutes at best to make sure my accounting software is up to date and the bills are properly copied into folders. When it comes to clients or online sales, I also want to double check that the invoice went out and they got a receipt for their purchase. To me, this is part of acting like a professional business owner and an investment in customer trust. It just makes sense to double check this, even if your sales provider like Stripe can do the whole thing automated today. Last but not least, I check my overall account status. What's the ratio of money coming in versus the money going out? Am I overpaying for a service? What subscription payment is coming up next? Should I continue using that service or switch to another one? Those are the questions I ask myself. Not every week, of course, but at least once a month, simply to have the feeling that I keep an eye on things and big upcoming payments don't catch me off guard. Once this block becomes a habit, something starts to feel different. You stop feeling like a freelancer who's hoping the money works out and start operating like a business owner who knows exactly where they stand. And that's a big thing, that's a big shift. All right, the final block of the admin session is to reset and to plan ahead for next week. That's probably the most important block to stay ahead of things. What tickets are open, why, and what to do about it. I usually start by checking which tickets are actually open. There's always something that didn't get finished by Friday afternoon. And I have a look at those tasks to see if they're still relevant going forward. If yes, I have to decide how to reschedule them depending on my priorities. And this is where checking my big picture strategy comes in. While I tend to operate with a daily and weekly plan to keep momentum going, my big picture strategy is what informs most of my work I do in the first place. So I look at this strategy regularly to see if I'm still on track. As I said, things change and business is unpredictable to some degree. So I want to make sure whatever I do today is still a step in the right direction. That way, I avoid doing things that feel like busy work in the moment, but will take me into a totally different direction I don't want to go to. Like all the other blocks and steps that we've discussed, I don't spend serious time here. 5 minutes at best. Is the work I did this week a step in the right direction? Does it get me closer to achieving my big picture plan? Yes, no. And depending on my answer, I plan tickets and commitments for next week. That's it, which is the final step in the reset block. I literally organize my tickets on a little whiteboard I have sitting on my desk these days. As I said in previous videos, I can't work with Asana or other tools and have digital Kanban boards within an app somewhere. I need to see my tickets right in front of me every single day. And while it's neither digital nor automated, it works just fine for me. The point is, I plan ahead for a few days with simple paper tickets. And when life has other plans, I rearrange them as I need to. But at the end of the day, I have my workload scheduled for the next few days. Now, to get the most out of my admin session, aside from planning a few days ahead, I follow 3 rules we should talk about to finish this up. They increase the chance I stay on topic and I don't follow this urge to go back to editing or publishing more content all the time. Here's what I've learned the hard way: the session itself isn't the transformation, the rules for the session are. And without them, the system simply turns back into chaos. So, rule one is no creative work during the session. Why does that matter? Well, chances are the moment I start my content pipeline review, I find things I want to fix. A thumbnail here, a tag there, keyword adjustments, and whatnot. Whatever it is, fixing it right away might only take a few minutes. So, why not do it right away? Well, the problem with that is that it's a shift to creative work, which comes at the cost of stopping admin work. And before I know it, I spend 2 hours redoing a thumbnail instead of checking the status of my business. And what makes this dangerous is that I probably won't go back after to admin, so it'll just stay unfinished. Rule two that helped me a lot to be more businessy about content creation: admin sessions happen on the same day every week. That way, I can plan ahead and schedule creative deep work clusters around it without compromising one or the other. And rule three, the final one, is to keep it simple. By that, I mean not overdo the admin part of the systems review or the business review. If you're like me, your first instinct is probably to say, hey, wait, I should add more checks to the review and do this and do that to get more comprehensive data. But here's the problem with that. If you run a 4 to 6 hour session for this, you'll skip it because it's just too much information to take in. And the longer the session takes, the louder the voice is. You should edit videos right now. So the shorter you can keep admin and maintenance work, the better. Once you get started with this, the biggest thing that'll change is decision quality. You can stop making content decisions from memory and instinct and start making them based on current data. You know what you're deciding about. And the second thing this changes is your overall stress level. A lot of stress these days comes from being in a reactive mode all the time. Looking at the current state of things and then planning ahead turns that into a more proactive approach. Your to do list doesn't get any smaller, but it becomes clearer in terms of priorities. Call it having more control, if you will. And that's not just an operational improvement, that's the difference between running a business and being run by one. Most creators never cross that line, not because they lack talent or motivation, because we all have that enough, but because they never consider the systems to support it. I think by far the biggest change is that running a weekly admin session will improve your content creation, though, because you review the analytics and make the decisions based on that, which means over time your thumbnails improve, your titles get better, and keyword clusters get more precise. None of that would happen if you only focus on creating more content all the time. The goal should be to produce better content over time. And to do that, you need to approach content creation with business thinking. One admin session per week can literally do that for you. But none of the reviews and the planning steps matter if you don't have a clue how to run your channel like a business in the first place. And that's why I made a whole video series on how to apply systems thinking in the solo business context. From getting all the processes out of your head to compiling proper standard operating procedures and delegating work so you turn from stressed out content creator to a real business owner fast. So check it out now, and I definitely see you there. Thanks for watching. See you next time.